so weird doing a talk when I've been emceeing the whole day, and I'm just so thankful I get to chat with all of you today. Hey, thanks so much for coming out. This talk wasn't supposed to happen. We'll talk about why in a minute, but just as an introduction, I'm Tejas. I feel like I shouldn't do this because I've been doing this the whole day. If you've wondered how to pronounce my name, it's like contagious. Don't worry, I'm not. It's just the elevation here that makes you feel it. And I've had the privilege of working at a variety of places over the course of my career, as a consultant, as an employee, as a cheerleader, as whatever. And I really don't take it lightly. I've been able to work with some of the best teams and learn from the true greats in the industry. And today, I'm an AI developer relations engineer at DataStax. DataStax, we're committed to just making AI, generative AI specifically, more accessible to everybody. And that's sort of the talk today. But I can't move on with this talk without acknowledging Eileen, who was supposed to actually be in this spot. And she, unfortunately, has fallen ill and isn't able to attend, right? That's why I'm here. I'm filling in for a different speaker. And if we can all just take a moment and send her some love and support on social. This is her handle on X, formerly known as Twitter. If you want to just send a little tweet like, hey, I hope you're feeling better. And I think she'd appreciate that. With that, I'm here to talk to you today about how we can unlock value with AI today. And Chris and Cap, dear friends of mine, did this really great talk in the beginning. Hey, Chris, I see you with your kids. They showed you how you can unlock value with AI in your marriage, in your personal relationships. And I thought that was super valuable. And the key word is today, because a lot of it can be used today as we saw. So what might that look like with business and applications in the workplace? And that's really what I want to talk to you about today, okay? But before we do this, we need to define what is an AI engineer. This is somewhat new. And when I asked people preparing for this presentation, do you think you could be described this way? Could you identify this way? There was a lot of fear, uncertainty, doubt, and imposter syndrome. And if there's one thing I want to dedicate my entire career to eliminating, it's that. It's fear, uncertainty, doubt, and imposter syndrome. So I want to work together with you to understand this term and show you that there's actually room at the table that you can play in this space. Okay, and a lot of people have said, hey, I didn't go to university. I don't have a linear algebra background. Excuse me, I'm not academic. I just write JavaScript, man. I can't do this. I have news for you, you can, okay? And so let's look at some resources that help us in this definition. This is Latent Space. This is the leading newsletter and podcast on AI engineering. It's by a dear friend of mine named Swix, aka Sean Wang. And this is his foundational article where he explores what AI engineering is. And this diagram is the centerpiece where he defines AI engineering. And if you look over on the side, there's data and research, which is machine learning research, machine learning engineering. And machine learning research is really academic, right? You're literally modeling like neural networks. Machine learning engineering is you're training models. You're doing things like training models with Python and notebooks and all of this. And then this line down the middle is the API, the application platform interface, the interface to the model. And in front of the API, we have AI engineering. So the case being made here is you don't need to train models or know Python or do data science to be an AI engineer. You just need to talk to an API, okay? Can we talk to an API? We write fetch. We can. And then at the end, you have the full stack engineer who uses AI engineering as part of their stack, but there's also UI engineering. There's backend engineering, there's DevOps engineering, et cetera, et cetera. So this is where we find AI engineering. And also, I want to draw your attention to the bottom. This quote, I think, sums it up really nicely. It says, in numbers, there's probably going to be significantly more AI engineers than there are machine learning or LLM, large language model engineers. One can be quite successful in this role without, read it with me, ever training anything. And the person who said this was the VP of AI at Tesla and a co-founder at OpenAI, literally the company behind ChatGPT, right? So if anyone knows anything about AI engineering, it's Andrej Karpathy. So he said, you can be quite successful without ever training. You don't need this background. So you are not an imposter here. If you can call an API to an LLM, you can be an AI engineer. I think this is super important. And it's important for this reason. Swix continues to say this will likely be the highest demand engineering job of the decade. And you might hear this and you go like, la, it's just hype. But look around. Okay, Anthropic is hiring today for this position and others, and the salaries are tremendous. And I don't know if you're not thinking about value, both personal, professional, for you and your loved ones, then what are you even doing here, right? So let's talk about AI. AI is a term that is hyped To some degree. I think if you put it in your pitch deck as a company, you'll probably get a higher valuation, and that's definitely a truth. But I want to take a balanced, nuanced look at it. I'm not going to spend too much time here because Chris and Cap, by the way, Mike, my timer's not working, so I'm just going to talk for like an hour. If it was on, I'd ignore it. I mean, anyway, so Chris and Cap did this really great thing where they showed us how AI is somewhat limited, right? Like Google has this AI overviews feature, and I think it's just the greatest source for memes of all time. And I want to see it get better, don't get me wrong, but like you've probably seen this on social media, somebody going to Google and let Google do the Googling for you and ask the question like, how many cigarettes should a pregnant woman smoke per day? The answer is 0, in case you're wondering. Actually, the answer is not just pregnant women, everybody. The answer is 0. But Google, with the AI overview, said a pregnant woman must smoke between 1 and 2 cigarettes per day. Problematic, very problematic, right? And this is not an isolated incident. It's hallucinations are real. There's many problems with generative AI, as we've seen earlier and as we'll see today. These are the big 3, right? Hallucinations, seeing stuff that isn't there. People don't need to smoke cigarettes per day. And if you do that, no judgment, but you don't need it, despite what your endocrinology will say. Anyway, so number 2 is finite context, meaning if you have a long enough conversation with a large language model, at some point it just forgets. The largest context window known today is Gemini with, I think, 2 million tokens. And what is a token? It's equivalent roughly to an English word, okay? 2 million tokens. It says, please wrap up. Mike. 2 million tokens, which 2 million English words. Now, if you had a conversation with a friend and every 2 million words they forgot what you were talking about, you'd be like, I don't, what is this, right? And finally, knowledge cutoff, and this is pretty bad. Now, this problem, knowledge cutoff specifically, is going away, but if you try and send a request to GPT 3.5 or GPT 3 about like, hey, how do I convert $100 to Japanese yen? Maybe controversial at this point. It will say, I don't know, because I don't have the current exchange rate. There is no access to real-time information. And this makes it kind of useless, because it can give you answers about 2021, but what about today, right? And so there's a technique to fix all of this, fix the entire class of problems. We'll spend some time talking about this, but I don't want to spend too much time talking about it. It's called RAG. Anyone heard of RAG? Anyone do RAG? Yeah, okay, many of you. Great. Retrieval Augmented Generation. And what it means functionally is that it's English. I love this. Like sometimes we hide behind terminology to gatekeep. You know what I'm talking about? Like in machine learning, there's the term stochastic gradient descent. Anyone know? It just means try stuff randomly. Stochastic means random. Like in medicine, this is so common. Pulmonary embolism, right? It just means a blood clot in your something. And so we don't need to hide behind jargon. RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation, is you get data, and you use it to augment, aka change, the generated output from a language model. So what's the exchange rate from US dollar to Indian rupee? I don't have the exchange rate. Well, you retrieve it. And in your prompt, before you ask the question, say, by the way, here's today's exchange rates. Now, convert 100 US to 100 Indian, and it will do it. That's RAG, right? It doesn't need to be gatekept. Okay, let's look at RAG in practice with a demo. For the demo, I'm going to show you visually how this works. At DataStax, as I mentioned, we're committed to making this very accessible to everybody. So we make an open source, free, not selling anything tool that is like no code, but for like RAG. It helps you build pipelines and workflows so that you can reason about your LLM interactions. And I want to use this for illustrative purposes only to teach you, to show you RAG in action. So it's a tool called Langflow. It's self-hosted. In fact, I'm running this on localhost port 7860. And it's fully self-hosted and open source. So I have this pipeline, and this is RAG, okay? This is totally RAG. So this is how RAG works. A user submits a query. In this case, we're doing chat input. And the query is, which movie won the Oscar for Best Picture in 2024, right? That's the prompt I'm sending. Okay. What we have then is an embeddings model. An embeddings model, this is given to us by OpenAI, but everybody makes them, Anthropic makes them, whatever. An embeddings model is a specialized machine learning model that can convert plain natural language into just a series of numbers that have meaning. So the cool thing about this is the numbers that come from natural language are close together if the words are close together semantically. So things like hot dog, pancake, donut, they're all over here numerically. And words like airplane are over here, right? And when you convert natural language to numbers this way, you can do distance or similarity search. For example, if I ask you, hey, which is closer to 103 or 72? You'll be like 72, it's closer. We can measure distance with numbers. That's what embeddings models do. So we take the user's query, we convert it into an embedding, aka a big list of numbers, and then we do a search across our database of topics. Our database in this case is AstraDB. So we send those embeddings and that query to Astra. We get the results from the database. And from the results from the database, we construct a prompt. This is the most classic RAG prompt in the world. You get the context from some source, some web API, some database, it doesn't matter. And you say, now, given the context above, answer the question as best as possible. This is the user's query, and the LLM will give you this answer. This is the world's most classic RAG prompt, okay? So then we take that prompt, which is just a piece of text, and we send it to OpenAI, to specifically GPT-4o. In fact, just to illustrate how bad the models used to be, we'll go to 3.5 Turbo. And finally, we have a chat output. So let's play with this. Let's go to the playground and be like, which movie won the Oscar for Best Picture in 2024? And so we're sending this to our large language model. Of course, it doesn't know. I'm sorry, but I'm unable to provide real-time information as my training only includes data up until September 2021. Now, if you go to ChatGPT and ask this, it will do a new thing. ChatGPT does RAG as a solution to this, but I want to show you under the hood how it works. So how do we fix this? That's what a RAG pipeline looks like. Well, to fix it, we're searching our database for things, right? This one. So what if we had an ingestion pipeline? And here, we have a URL. This is the British Film Institute. This is their coverage of the Oscars. So we take this URL and we collect its data and convert it into text chunks. And the reason we split the entire text content of the web page into chunks is because then we can rank chunks for similarity. So we search for the chunk containing best picture. What's that? Okay, the movie. So we break it into chunks, and then we take the same embeddings model here, and we basically use them to insert the data into the database. So I'm going to hit play, and it's going to literally go crawl that website and like insert its text contents into my database. And oh no, that was not what I expected. That's the demo effect. Very annoying. Okay, let's try some stuff. I'll hit play again, maybe? I didn't change anything. What happened? Okay, is the website even valid? It totally is valid. All right, I'm not going to spend too much time here because Mike messed up the timer, so I'm joking. Let's just go check what we have in our... So this is my database, by the way, welcome. Let's reload and make sure it's nice and empty. And again, I'm scraping the text content and putting it in a database. The database apparently has stuff. It has a lot of stuff. But it didn't break the stuff down into chunks. That's really interesting. So I can actually preview my data. What did I get? Okay, I got a big text document. Did I break it down into chunks? I did, I guess. Okay. Well, this is fine. Let's just run the prompt again, because it did insert it into the database. Let's see if it gets close enough. And if not, I have an even better demo for you. So we're going to search for this now. Notice, there is actual stuff in the database now. Okay, well, it didn't break it into chunks. That's kind of a bummer. That's so strange. Let's chunk size. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to delete this and make it again. And you're going to have to just sit there and wait. Delete, let's create another collection, and we'll call it stuff. And I'm going to bring my own embeddings. I'm going to do 15,036 and cosine. And now it's like actively deleting my collection, so the form validation fails. And so I'm just going to wait. Oh, there, it told me it's deleted. Now I'm going to create it. Look at that. And something went wrong, because that's we actually have React error boundaries. This is quite cool. So anyway, the collection exists. I'm going to try and put the data back in there. And now does it? Oh, it still doesn't work. Whatever. It's fine. Let's just assume it works. Okay, so at this point, it would say that Oppenheimer won the best movie, whatever. Okay, so we've added real-time data into this. And you might be thinking, well, I'll believe it when I see it. I do have another demo. I have a backup demo. It's all good. So as a spoiler, I run a podcast. It's called Contagious Code. And this podcast is very, very, very long. Like so we dropped this episode today, and it's like an hour 45 with the founder of Sentry. And it's about how his open source side project, aka Sentry, is now a $100 million business, right? And there's all these discussions. The problem is they're very long. And a lot of people go, hey, I don't have the time to listen to this. And I'm like, why are you telling me this? Anyway, so like, okay. But I thought I can help, right? So I built this feature. This also uses RAG, where we have this search form, and you can type anything. You can literally be like, I don't know, tell me what's the origin story of Remix? Why not? Origin story of, since Remix is, Utah and whatever. And it searches across every conversation we've ever had, ever. And it tells you, we discussed the history of this with Kent Dodds at this time in the podcast. And this is using RAG, right? So it searches through all the transcripts that are in my database through vector search. And now if I click on the timestamp, it will literally go to the point where...
history of where Remix came from and how I came to love it.
He said history of where Remix came from. Yeah, thank you, Corey. And so there's also, resource hints. You don't need to type like natural language. Resource hints are a great way to make your web pages faster. And if you want to learn about how you can use preload and prefetch, we discussed this at this time. And you tap on this, and he says...
So I don't know how familiar you were with resource hints.
He literally says resource hints. So we're doing RAG, we're getting data from the episodes, we're giving it to OpenAI, we're saying generate an answer, and include a hyperlink, okay? So this is one case where RAG adds value today, but here's what I want to submit to you, and I'll probably wrap with this, because I don't trust the timer anymore. But I think, and I want to submit to you that chatbots are cheap. I think we saw ChatGPT and we're like, okay, chatbots I'm going to build a bunch of chatbots all the way. This is not peak GenAI, okay? I think we can do better. Specifically, I'm talking about generative UI. Anyone see this? Anyone use this at work? This is, yeah, Alexa is here. This is the way. And I want to shout out the great work of the Vercel. Where's the Vercel team? JJ and JJ is here somewhere. They're over there. Thank you. So the Vercel AI SDK does some great work making generative UI possible. That is AI that returns React components, right? Because one of the problems with GenAI is all of these, but also it's mostly just text. They produce mostly just text. So let me just show you this demo, and then we'll look through how it's built. And this is using React. It's using React server components, thank you, and streaming, okay? So this is the final demo here. So what we'll do is, we'll go to, I built an app. So if you go to, I love Netflix. Anyone else watch Netflix? So if you go to Netflix, right, and you want to watch something, they do keyword search, and this is kind of lame. So if you search for movies with a strong female lead, like in natural language, you literally get nothing. And it says here, as suggestions, try different keywords. That sucks. This is not how I search for movies. I don't know the name or the actor or whatever. I just want to show me a scary thing, right? And so I built a solution to this using Gen UI. I'd like to show that to you now. So if we go to localhost 3000, we call it movies++. And I can type this prompt, movies with a strong female lead. Movies in Utah, maybe. I've never done this before. So Utah has been popular. Okay, and this is a chatbot, but it shows you these movies that were filmed in Utah. And look at the beautiful response. It's filmed in Dead Horse Point State Park, and it shows you where in Utah, and I think this is so beautiful. But it's just another chatbot. How can we use Gen UI to enrich the experience? Again, the whole point of all we do, web engineering, React, AI, is to create high-quality experiences for users. Pay attention. This is probably the most important thing I'll say. The user on the other side of the device is what matters more than anything else, more than our technical brilliance, more than our framework. They deserve a quality experience. And this chatbot is not a quality experience. So here, what if I do this? What if instead of the chatbot, I say, what might this look like as UI? Right? And hopefully this thing is smart enough so it gets them, and look at that. Tell me that's not better than a chatbot. And it's fully client-side interactive. It can respond to mouse events. It can do window.alert. This is not a static thing. Incredible. In fact, I could do even better. I could show me the trailer for The Mummy. All right, let's do Jurassic World. I had no idea that movie had ties to Utah, but cool. And now it literally gets the trailer and starts playing in line. What in the world? Look at that. That's incredible. And so I could go even more. I could be what was the critical reception for Jurassic World? Right? And then it switches back to, it picks the best format, and it's Rotten Tomatoes say 71%. And so, generative UI. Okay, how does this work? Let's look quickly at the code. And same energy. And I will wrap up. That kid is going to be a great engineer. So this is the code. If we open up VS Code, it all just happens here. So we're using the Vercel AI SDK, So we're importing these functions from AI/RC, and this is how it works. So we have this function called continue conversation, and in it we get the history, so that's the whole conversation history. And we call this function stream UI, and we give it a model, we give it the history, plus a new message from the user, meaning show me this as UI, show me the trailer. This is the new message. And then in the case of text, it's a function that returns markdown wrapped text content. But this is where the magic happens. There's this thing called tools. And a tool with large language models in GenAI is exactly the same as a tool with human beings. If you ask me, hey Tejas, can you multiply 3 prime numbers and then divide them by another prime, I'm gonna be like, no. You know the Bugs Bunny meme with a no. I don't have the mental or cognitive capacity to do this. What I do have is a calculator. So in my neural network, I'm not qualified for this, but I have a tool. This is modeled exactly in large language models, like GPT-4, like Mistral 8X22B, etc. Large language models do this. So you, through JSON, using the Vercel AI SDK, say, these are the tools available to you. For example, the show trailer tool. And the description is how the LLM sort of knows when to use the tool. When a user asks for a trailer, use this tool. And it does, right? You can give it parameters. These are Zod schemas so that it passes the right data to your function. And generate is the tool itself. It is a function. It's an async function that speaks to my Astra DB, my database where all the movies live. And it can yield spinners. This is so cool. It's a generator. So it can say, OK, I'm going to show a spinner and then continue processing. It searches my database for the movies. It finds the movie. Then it's getting the trailer. So it yields another piece of feedback to the user. We get the trailer, and then we return a React component. So what are tools with LLMs, with large language models? Tools are literally just functions. You know what else are functions? React components. So what we're doing, it's just a function that the LLM calls, and then returns JSX, aka a React component. What does it return? In this case, it returns a player. What is a player? It's just React player from NPM. This is nothing. So the components are not generated on the fly by the LLM, but you can return JSX. And this is actually cool because it saves you from hallucinations. You're serving your users your components that you wrote. You're constraining them to logic that your application engineers defined. Similarly, there's a tool for create generative UI. A tool used to generate UI in response to a user explicitly asking for UI, so the trailer list. And what does it return? It returns my movies component, which is just literally just a React component that iterates over movies and responds to mouse enter and mouse leave events, right? This is generative UI, and I think this outperforms chatbots by a mile, right? I did enter a prompt, but what if I didn't enter a prompt? What if you had an e-commerce store, right? And your recommendations, your product recommendations, you didn't have to write an algorithm for that. You just generative UI. This is the user, this is their purchase history, create it. And the portion of your screen in React components just exists. This is the future, and this is generative UI. I will close with a prediction that I made, which is, I went on social media recently, and I said this. I called it in May, and I'll continue to call it Agentic RAG is the future of AI. So we already talked about RAG, right? I take some data, I create a prompt, and I get an answer. Agentic RAG is when you as a developer don't go retrieve, but you write a tool, and your LLM can just go retrieve whatever data it wants. This is the future, and it's very easy. You just write some tools that are functions, and your LLM goes and gets the data. All right, we're about to wrap up. One final thing I want to show you is I did highlight a lot of large language models from for-profit companies, despite OpenAI claiming not-for-profit, right? But what if you work at a bank? What if data privacy is important? I live in Germany, okay? What if you want to own everything and run it on-premise? There's a tool called Ollama. I just want to share this with you. Many of you have heard of it. In case you haven't, Ollama is from the team that used to build Docker. They actually left, and now they build Ollama, which is basically like Docker for LLMs, and it's pretty cool. So I'll show you this, how you can run it locally. You just run Ollama. And again, I have no relationship to Ollama at all. But you run Ollama run Mistral. That's an open source model. And you can just download these open source models from wherever you want. And it will start up a little bit. And this is an LLM running on my computer. It's so cool. And I can confirm that it's running on my computer using Acetop, which is a monitoring tool. I don't know if you guys have used, or you people, excuse me, have used Acetop. But Acetop will show you a dashboard of the usage. And I want you to see the GPU usage here. It's like 10%, right? When I say write an essay about Utah, And it's gonna, and now if you watch my GPU, it's like totally maxing out and running on device. That is so cool. And it's actually writing. And this, of course, is exposed over localhost port something. You can put it in a web server and run it. So you can self-host and run everything and own everything yourself using RAG and using Agentic RAG. That's the future. Small, specialized models for your use case that achieve your outcomes. All right, let's summarize and wrap up. I hope this has been helpful. It's a React rally, so I did show you some React and some AI and how you can actually bring value today using RAG, generative UI, and more. I'm here in the hallway track. I'm on stage all day, so if you have more questions, I'd love to talk to you about this. This is my full-time job to understand and push the limits, so please come meet me. And finally, here's where you can find some resources and also a link to my website. Thank you so much for coming. I so appreciated the opportunity to talk to you today.